So you have such a varied and interesting background. I can only imagine it results in some really innovative approaches to thinking about the work that you're doing. So you're focused on inclusive leadership. Why is that important? Like, why should we care?
So that is a really big question. There are many reasons why. I mean, first off, inclusive leadership, I mean, in the last couple of years have just become an imperative for leaders. I mean, it is a competency and a capability that all great leaders need to have. And inclusive leadership is important for understanding the markets, the customer, our employees, and really being able to understand them so that all boats rise.
Fantastic. And so when I'm thinking about myself as a leader, what are some of the main things that I would do where inclusive leadership would show up? What is and
Mhm.
practicality in real life?
Yeah. So there are four things or characteristics that I think about around inclusive leadership. The first one is visible commitment,
Mm,
that people around you can see and feel that you are indeed being inclusive, and you hold others to that same behavior, if you will. And so whenever we're in a situation when somebody is not being inclusive and we don't step up and address it, then you continue to erode your culture. So the first is around visible commitment, that I can see you're being inclusive. The next is around humility, because we don't know everything. And it's recognizing and sharing with others, I don't know your experience, or I don't know this customer's experience, but I want to learn. So it's about this humility of recognizing I don't know everything. And the next is similar to this. It's called awareness of your blind spots,
yeah.
and being able to listen openly and sharing with others when you make a mistake and you say, I want to do better. So I have blind spots, you have blind spots, we all have them. And when we don't recognize them, dangerous things can happen. You think about when you're in your car and you're driving and somebody's in your blind spot and you get in their lane. It's the same thing with relationships, and being able to say, I'm sorry, I just missed that. And then the fourth one, which is my favorite, is around curiosity. And genuinely being interested in learning about others and their situation, and being open and asking open-ended questions to go deeper on that. So for me, curiosity is the secret elixir of great leadership. If I would just teach one characteristic, it would be how to be curious, one with your own understanding of what's inspiring you in the world, but then also asking those open-ended questions so that you can get into understanding what other people might be experiencing.
So as a leader, like how would I infuse that into the culture? Like, are there structural things or, stop and reflect moments that you can put in place?
Yes, the most important thing that great leaders do is they ask questions, and they ask questions that are open-ended and with a mindset and a heart of really wanting to understand the situation or the individuals. So there's two types of questions. There's genuine and non-genuine. So a genuine question is just how I described it, is that you're truly wanting to understand what the other person is experiencing. And a non-genuine question is that you pretend like you're being genuine, like, oh, I'm going to ask a question, but in your mind and in your heart, you say, I already know the answer. I'm just going to let them state it, and then I'm going to tell them what they really should be thinking. And unfortunately, leaders, they've ascended to a level because they were good at probably what they did before, and now they're leading other individuals. And if they don't check themselves, they can just continuously tell people what to go do. And that's not a curious leader. That's not an inclusive leader. And so one of the key things that I love to do is teach people how to ask good questions.
Well, and that's like the definition of being on a corporate board, for example, is that all the things you just talked about are essential elements of someone being able to actually be a governor. You can, you can manage, which is not necessarily synonymous with leadership. You can manage pretty high up the totem pole with not embracing all of these behaviors. But certainly once you're doing group management, if you will, on a board, that changes everything.
Oh, that's so well said. And when I went through How Women Lead, the board readiness workshop, one of the key things I learned that helped me when I got a corporate board was nose in, hands out. And that really forces you not to go do the work, but asking genuine questions and seeking to understand how you might make a contribution based on the struggles or the challenges that the organization is having. That was so powerful to me.
Oh, fantastic. So Deborah, when you talked just a minute ago about your four or five elements of inclusive leadership.
Yep.
Four. As you were talking, I actually thought, boy, some of these are developmental. Like when I was 30, and I've had a lot of young women work for me that are super smart. Right around the age of 30, you really think you know more than everybody. And I think humility is hard to find sometimes because you've met a certain level of success in some cases, right? And accomplishment. You got rewarded for being smart, being able to do things fast. And that's almost like a pivot before maybe you become a true leader. And I just think developmentally, a lot of us sort of aren't really ready to embrace some of this stuff early on. Do you have any hacks that you do? Do you work with younger leaders to help them think through some of this, being curious and humility and, all the things that you just described?
Absolutely. And the thing that is so unique about what I'm saying is that it's really quite simple. It requires a discipline to execute on it.
Yes.
And I call it a hack, but it's just asking genuine questions and really in your heart wanting to understand that. And it's sort of the pattern that I share with the leaders that I develop, and I try to model it.
Yeah.
And
how do you actually become curious? Because I think some people, we hear about narcissists, right? Some people actually are not very curious than anybody else. They just want to tell you what they know, right?
Right.
So how and why do we even become incurious? Why do we stop?
So yes, so you think about this, as there was a longitudinal study by the University of London that studied young children, toddlers, and their relationship with their caregivers, which in this case was mostly mothers. And what they discovered is, not surprisingly, children ask a lot of questions. Matter of fact, you're just not going to believe this. They asked 396 questions a day. And if you break that down, that's right. Every minute and 59 seconds, toddlers are asking a question. Even if they can't speak, they're pointing, and that is a form of question. As adults, how many questions we ask a day? 5.
Oh, you're
and
kidding.
that might be, where are we going for dinner? Or
Yeah.
what time do I need to be there? Exactly. And so these neuroscientists determined that curiosity is not a trait. You're not necessarily born with it, but it's a state, meaning that when you're in an environment where things are new or you're around new people and you're just interested in understanding like what's going on in the world. And when you do that with just, like I said, open heart, open mind. So now you might say, well, wait, 396 questions in a day. As adults, it's 5. Like, what happened? What happened to us? We think about it in like the Christian faith. I went to Sunday school and I learned about Adam and Eve. And Eve got really curious and she ate of the tree of knowledge. And then sin was cast over the world. Like, oh my gosh, don't be curious. Or even in Greek mythology, there was Icarus wanted to fly. His father gave him wings of wax and said, don't go too close to the sun. He goes too close to the sun and he falls to his death. And then the third is, don't open Pandora's box, right? And then of course, curiosity killed the cat. So what I'm saying is, as we're hyper curious as children, we go to school and we're told children are to be seen and not heard. And all of that begins us to say, all right, there's a disciplined way in which you're supposed to learn, and I have to follow these rules. Now get this, then we go on to college and we become experts, and we've paid good money for that expertise. You're a doctor, a lawyer, a scientist, whatever it might be. And then you go into the workforce and you are paid for that expertise. And so that continuously narrows our really desire or inspiration to be curious. And that's what happens to us unless you're aware of it. And that's what inclusive leadership is all about, is sparking that curiosity. And you can inspire it in others by simply modeling it and asking those questions of them.